Oh, how I love Boucher. Something about him, I have to say. Okay, you guys, bear with me with these videos. I'm trying to record some lectures as naturally as possible, but this is not my wheelhouse. So be patient with me. I want to talk about Boucher quickly. As you've read in your textbook, or you should be starting to read chapter 30, learning about the Rococo era. And we're talking about some of the the top three OGs of the Rococo period. I like to call them the OGs. Boucher was influenced by a woman by the name of Madame du Pompadour. Madame du Pompadour was the first and favorite mistress of King Louis XV. Boucher also had a wife who was very, very, very gracious to him, helped him out a lot, would help him mix paints for his colors, would model for him occasionally. But it was Madame du Pompadour who absolutely adored him, and he adored her. So this is a really pretty portrait of Madame du Pompadour, looking how she wanted to look, right? She looks very dignified. She looks lovely. This is weird, but she looks like she probably smells good, right? She is sitting on a beautiful piece of furniture, probably cost a lot of money. She has, there's drapery, randomly hung up in the corners. Definitely expensive furniture in the background and the bookcase. But when we look at Madame de Pompadour, she's sitting in this taffeta dress, lots of fabric, lots of ruffles, embroidered flowers, ribbons, the works. She's sitting there holding a book. The book is open. So, that's some small iconography that symbolizes she is, she's educated, she does read. So this is kind of where we start when we think of Boucher. Boucher did a lot of portraits of Madame de Pompadour. I just brought in the second one. And we again see her looking very beautiful in a taffeta gown, different color, but we have the same ribbons, the same type of ruffles, the same embroidered flowers. Yeah, a little slightly different, but it's basically, we get a sense of her style. When we look at other paintings by Boucher, he does a lot of the reclining female nude. The reclining female nude is throughout history very, very common. It's going to be done for years to come, but it is going to change, and it is going to do kind of like an ebb and flow of how the female figure is represented. In this particular piece here that you've looked at in your textbook, we get a sense of, a young girl, and we see the vulnerability that Boucher paints her in as she's on her stomach on this lovely couch, and she is, clearly she's nude. She kind of looks aloof, like she's there simply for pleasure. She maybe doesn't understand what's to come, or what has happened, or I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have. So we've talked about this one. No, we haven't talked about it, but you've looked at it in your textbook. And what I want to do is show you the Odalisque from 1745. This one in particular, I find, is more interesting. It poses many more questions, and even today, it's quite difficult to look at. However, you have to remember, when you look at art history, you have to look at it through the lens of, the historical context, what was going on. This is 18th century France, very different than 21st century United States. So looking at Boucher's Odalisque, we're essentially seeing one of his mistresses. There is no evidence that we have that is proving she is Madame de Pompadour. It's probably not her, actually. In fact, we don't even know really who this woman is. It has been thought that maybe it was Boucher's wife, maybe it was Madame de Pompadour, but from all our evidence and scholarship, we just do not know. Odalisque is an old Turkish word for chambermaid, ultimately somebody who's brought in purely for sex. That would be typically a mistress during the 18th century for the king. So this painting was done by Boucher, but we do believe that Madame de Pompadour essentially commissioned it by way of the king, if that makes any sense. So the king loved paintings like this. Madame de Pompadour would have known that, and she told Boucher, create a small work of art that the king would like to enjoy. It would be only for his viewing pleasure. So Boucher obliged, and what we get is what the fun part about this painting is. Here you have this female. She's not completely nude, but she's nude with her her slip or her underdress. It's not quite her dress or her pajamas per se, but it is essentially serving as a slip. That has been, kind of partially removed. So it's off her shoulder, it's up over her backside, and she is laying on a big pile of what looks like cushions. Could be a couch under there, could be a bed, but if you look at the evidence of on the right, looks as if those are the cushions taken from the couch, and they've created some type of like a cushion fort. I don't know, but you do get a sense of playfulness, sexual playfulness. They meaning the king and this mistress probably were playing within these cushions and this fabric that is just draped all over the place. The fabric is very luscious, looks as if it's crushed velvet. It is a beautiful blue. So just looking at the fabric, we do get a sense that Boucher is an excellent painter. He knows how to represent the folds of fabric and how the lights and the shadows affect fabric in a great way that make it as realistic as possible. So it has a playful quality to it. There is a sense of eroticism, and that is definitely what the Rococo style is all about. This is playful, this is leisure. There is no true purpose to this painting except to please the king. When we look at the female figure differently, however, from a different perspective, a more serious perspective, we take a look at how she is laying on this mound of luxurious fabric. She's laying on her stomach, which is quite different in terms of the idea of a reclining female nude. From the past, we could go back to the Italian Renaissance painter Titian, who painted the Venus of Urbino. When we look at the Venus of Urbino, this was considered a paradigm shift. We have the Venus figure, which is not really Venus, it's just a contemporary courtly woman. She is nude and she is on her back, approaching the viewer with her eyes. She's not necessarily staring at you or confronting you in a way to pull you in. She's asking, she's approaching you with her eyes like, come on in, it's okay. Very different than what we see with Boucher's Odalisque. Boucher's Odalisque is on her stomach, which instantly changes her to a more vulnerable figure. She loses all power. The Venus of Urbino from the 16th century, although it was a different time, and this was done in Italy, she appears more apologetic, but she has power. She has control of you, the viewer, where you're looking, how you're looking. When we look at the Odalisque, we definitely get a sense of that vulnerability. She is not looking directly at the viewer. She looks down slightly, right? So her gaze is looked down a little bit. So she has a little bit of almost, you don't necessarily see fear, but you get a sense of maybe there's a feeling of shame. And this really creates, a very interesting juxtaposition, because there's a playfulness, but there's also a very seriousness about the woman who is represented here. When we compare all three we have Murphy, we have the Odalisque, and just throwing in the 16th century Titian's Venus of Urbino, you can definitely see a difference in all three. The reclining nude is subject matter that has been done throughout the history of art, and it's very important to look at it through the lens of who commissioned it, who the viewer was, and ultimately what was going on culturally to allow this type of artwork to take place. So when we go back to simply looking at the Odalisque, it definitely represents the Rococo movement because it is erotic, it's sensual, but it is leisurely. It is definitely playful. There's something about it that creates a lot of discourse even today. This was considered a private image for the king, but it also represents the style in which Rococo is about, and Boucher's style. Boucher is considered, in my book, an OG of the Rococo style, but the reason is he was an excellent painter. Rococo painters were excellent with technique. They had an incredible ability to set the mood, to, create personalities, to create texture. They could create wonderful compositions. But they're often looked down upon because of their choice in subject matter. There's not a lot of substance behind this particular piece. However, it does continue to intrigue us and keep us, wanting more and trying to always look back to the past and see what we can find.